Hello, my name is Agnes Khalanyan. Our focus today is on English First Additional Language. And the topic for today is punctuation marks. What are punctuation marks and why are they important? Punctuation marks are symbols that are used to aid the clarity and comprehension of written language. Let's visualize for a moment. Just think of a city which doesn't have traffic signs or road signs. What will happen in that city? Chaos. A lot of accidents will happen. That's what we do in our writing when we don't use punctuation marks. Punctuation marks, they help to make the meaning of the text clear by linking or separating words, phrases, clauses, and sentences. Let's start with capital letters. Sentence always starts with a capital letter. At the beginning of a sentence, you have to use a capital letter. For example, she always forgets her purse. It's a sentence. At the beginning, we have used the capital letter, the first letter S. The second one, A, which starts the sentence, is written in capital letter. A river flows through the valley. Capital letters are also used when we write our proper nouns. That is real names. Name for people or persons. For example, Joyce does not use a computer. The letter that starts the proper name, J, we have to write it in capital letters. We also use capital letters for places. The second sentence, it snows a lot in winter in Russia. Russia is a proper name of a country. As a result, we have to use capital R. And our last example for proper nouns, it's Mary enjoys cooking. Mary is written in capital letters. Every time we use proper nouns, we have to use capital letters. We also use capital letters for main words in title of books, films, or plays. They are supposed to all be written in capital letters. For example, a book by a novel written by F. Fitzgerald. Tender is the night. We have to use capital letter for T and night. It's the title of the book. We also use capital letters to write days of the week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. All these are proper nouns. They are real names that tells us which day of the week is. As a result, we have to use capital letters every time we write them. We also have to use capital letter to write the month of the year, all the months in the year, from January up to December. Like in example here, September. We have used a capital S because it's a proper noun, and November. When we don't want to use proper nouns, we have to use pronouns. All the pronouns that we have, we use them. When writing them, we use small letter, except when they start a sentence. The only pronoun that we are supposed to use capital letter when we use it, regardless of where it appears in the sentence, is pronoun I. For example, I like to draw pictures. I is a pronoun. It refers to the author. If you don't want to use your particular name, it substitutes the pronoun I, substitute your proper name, so you have to use a capital letter in writing the pronoun I. The second example, I spend all my savings. So I can't go for holidays this summer. The first part of the sentence is written in capital letter. The second part after the comma is also written in capital letter because it substitutes a proper noun. Every time you write or use pronoun I, we have to write capital letters. The next punctuation mark is full stop. Full stop is used at the end of a complete sentence. That is a statement. For example, in the first sentence, we drink coffee every morning. It's a complete thought. At the end, we have to place a full stop. The second sentence, the train leaves in 10 minutes. It's also a complete thought. It's a sentence. It stands on its own. At the end, we have to place a full stop. We also use full stop when we write abbreviations, but not all abbreviations do we use punctuation marks. But in some, we do. For example, when we write titles. Like in our first sentence, Mr. full stop Smith was talking with Mr. full stop White. Mr. MR is an abbreviation for Mr. We also use full stop after we have written avenue. When writing formal letters, when we write an address, we are not supposed to use abbreviations. Writing, we are not supposed to use abbreviations. For example, when you have to write a formal letter, you, for example, write avenue in full. You say number 12, Cook Avenue. You write it in full, and you also write Bloemfontein, the name of the city. It's supposed to be written in capital letters. The avenue, you're supposed to write it in full. Even when you write the street address, you write like this, 1293. Tau is a proper name of the street. You have to write T in capital letter and the street also in capital and in full. You only use abbreviations for informal speech or informal writing. The last example here, captain also, when you write, we abbreviate the word captain, you write CAPT, full stop at the end. Our next punctuation mark is comma. Comma, it is used to separate introductory phrase from the main clause. Introductory phrase tells us that more information is to follow. For example, sentence number 1, at the beginning of the story, comma, Amelia was given a present. At the beginning of the story is an introductory phase, which tells us that more information is to come, and we have that information that Amelia was given a present. So we have to place comma after the introductory phase. Our second sentence, according to the text. According to the text also is our introductory phrase. We place a comma after it. Then Amelia dropped the box. Comma is also used in complex sentences. Complex sentence is made out of two sentences joined together. For example, let's go to number 1. Miriam Makeba was one of the greatest performers South Africa has produced. That is a main clause. Our second clause, Miriam Makeba spent many years in exile. It's another main clause. A main clause means it's a sentence that can stand on its own. But when we join these two sentences, we are going to have a main clause and subordinate clause. If we join these two sentences, we are going to use who. And we'll have a complex sentence. Miriam Makeba, who was one of the greatest performers South Africa has ever produced, spent many years in exile. So when we have a complex like this, which has got a subject and a verb, we are supposed to place the subordinate clause. We are supposed to place the comma before and after the subordinate clause. This is our subject, Miriam Makeba, and spent many years in exile is our verb. So before the subordinate clause, which is who was one of the greatest performers South Africa has ever produced, and after the subordinate clause, you have to place a comma. Comma is also used between words in a series or list. When you have two lists, we use comma. For example, he was a tall man, comma, dark, and handsome. You have to see that the conjunction end, the words, the end used between the dark and handsome, the last two words, we use and instead of comma. You can also use a comma before and, a conjunction. Your sentence could read as, he was tall, comma, dark, comma, and handsome. Number 2, they went to the market to buy carrots. There must be a comma here. They went to the market to buy carrots, comma. We are listing. They also bought potatoes, comma, onions and green beans, full stop. Our sentence is complete. Between the last two words, we use the conjunction and. Remember, I said we can also use a comma just before a conjunction and. And your sentence will read like, they went to the market to buy carrots, comma, potatoes, comma, onions, comma, and green beans, full stop. Question mark. We use a question mark after an interrogative sentence at the end of a question. For example, sentence number 1. Where are you from? We have to place question mark at the end. to show that the question has been posed. The second one, who received the Olympic medals? You are asking question at the end, we have to use a question mark. Colon. Colon is used to indicate a list. For example, just before you list anything, you have to use a colon in a sentence. You went to the market to buy the following items, colon. Now you start listing lettuce, comma, tomatoes, comma, cucumbers and carrots. We used a colon when we list, just before the sentence, before all the items that are to be listed. It is also used to introduce a quotation. You have to quote anything from a particular author. For example, like we did here with our former president, Mr. Mandela. We'll say, Mandela said, colon, education is the most powerful tool which we can use to change the world. Before every word that are quoted, you have to use a colon. Semicolon. Semicolon is used to mark a long pause as a comma. For example, she went by train. She would rather have flown. There's a long pause between the two sentences. It also indicates opposite ideas or antithesis. Opposite. In summer, she swims. There should be a long pause there. And the opposite of that, in winter, she skates. It is also used to join two main clauses where there is no conjunction. For example, she worked hard for the examination, colon, she had nothing to fear. These are two main clauses. We say they are main clauses because they can stand on their own, each of them. She worked hard for the examination. She had nothing to fear. There's no conjunction. Instead of conjunction, we have semicolon. Quotation marks. Quotation marks are used for direct quotations. For example, when you quote what Mr. Thompson said, you placed the colon first, open inverted commas to show that you are quoting. I feel I have really earned this. Comma, close quotation. She said, comma, taking up her mug of tea. We use quotation marks to include or enclose the direct words which had been said by the author. We also use quotation mark when you quote someone else's words. Like Martin Luther King once said, colon, open inverted commas, I have a dream, full stop, close quotation. Apostrophe. Apostrophe can be used in two ways. The first one, it indicates contraction, or when you the shortened form of the word. Instead of saying She is a good person. We use conjunction. She's a good person. And we have to place apostrophe between E and S. This apostrophe, where it is placed, is an indication that a letter has been left out here. So it's very important where you place your apostrophe. It shows that a letter has been left out, has been omitted. The word has been contracted. When you write this in full, we are going to write it in this way. She is a good person. Second one, he's been through difficult times. This apostrophe shows that a letter here has been left out. When you write it in full, you are going to write it like this sentence. In this sentence, he is been through difficult times. Remember not to use contractions when you write your formal, when you do your formal writing, like essays. You can use them, this contraction, only when you write informal letter, because you write to people you love and know. Apostrophe, again, is used to show possession, ownership. It shows that something belongs to someone. For example, the first bulletin, he joined the Charles Army in 1642. The apostrophe here, the S here, followed by the S, shows that this army belonged to no one but Charles. This person joined Charles' army, the army that belonged to Charles only, no one else. The second bulletin, Sally's hair was blonde and curly. The apostrophe here, followed by the S, shows ownership. It shows that this blonde and curly hair belongs to no one but Sally. We have put together an anthology of children's poetry, children's poetry. This anthology of poetry belongs to children. Hyphen is also a punctuation mark. It can be used in compound ways. It is used to join two or more words together into a compound term. For example, my 8-year is a compound word, 8-year. In between, you have to use a hyphen. Old, my 8-year-old. It's a compound word. Also, between a year and old, you have to use a hyphen. 8-year-old is a compound word. In between, you have to use a hyphen. My 8-year-old boy loves reading. It is used to link prefixes to words. Prefixes are the words that are added to the root word. They come before the root word. Auntie, it's a prefix. You add to the word Dentraft, and it gives the word anti-Dentraft. So we have an anti-Dentraft shampoo. Life, we add life to threatening. These two words are made into a compound by placing a hyphen between. Life-threatening experience. They are both words on themselves. You know what is life. When a person is breathing, it's life. Threatening is something that is really scary. When you combine them together, you have to use a hyphen. Then they'll give you a life-threatening experience. Well-deserved present. After you have done something, somebody decided to give you a well-deserved present. Well-deserved, we combine these two words, will give us a compound word. You join them by placing a hyphen between two words. Ellipses. Ellipses are the three dots. They are the characteristics of the ellipses are these three dots. Ellipses indicates in a sentence, it indicates that a sentence is incomplete or a thought is not complete. Indicates that a sentence is incomplete or that something has been omitted, has been left out. You better study or else you can complete whatever you think the author wanted to say. We can also use ellipses. There are three dots. Ellipses to show that something or the story is not yet completed, is to be continued. For example, you walked to the edge of the cliff end. The story was not completed. And we see this by the use of three dots, which are referred to as ellipses. The dash. Dash is slightly longer than the hyphen. It's used to emphasize a longer pause or break in a sentence, often for dramatic effect. For example, after much deliberation, the final verdict was delivered. Dash. Not guilty, the judge stated confidently. It is often used for dramatic effect. Brackets, we have round brackets, and also square brackets. Depending upon the text that you are writing, brackets will serve different purposes. For example, the first one, the round brackets, this one, the round brackets, also known as parentheses, are used to add extra information where required. For example, Neil Armstrong was last introduced. When we were in the contest, everybody was introduced, and Neil Armstrong was the last to be introduced. When we have to add extra information, we'll say Neil Armstrong, opening bracket, the first person to walk on the moon, close inverted comma, was the last to be introduced. They also indicate where information has come from when you are quoting, citing or using information directly from another source, especially when you write your essays. When you write your essays, you normally use other sources to prepare for your topic. So if you have to use, or if you have to quote from the source, for example, you have to use the brackets. For example, That's one small step for a man, but one giant leap for mankind. This was taken from Neil Armstrong's, which was said or written in 1969. These brackets, they show that for us to get more information about this statement, we have to look for all the sources about Neil Armstrong, which were written in 1969. Then we'll be able to get more information. So brackets are used to indicate where information came from, especially when quoting. Square brackets. Square brackets are used to add information to the reader that was not explicitly stated. For example, she did not find it amusing. Would never found it amusing. She, Mrs. Jones. We are saying this explicitly to indicate that this was said by Mr. Jones. Did not find it amusing. Exclamation mark. The purpose of an exclamation mark is to demonstrate strong emotion within a sentence. They help the reader to determine if a word is spoken with emphasis, passion, or anger. For example, ouch! It is so sore. It shows that this person is really hurt. I'm petrified, whispered the frightened woman. It shows anger. Look out! I screamed. It emphasizes an instruction. We have to look out for whatever the person wants you to look at. That is the end of our presentation.